Ropella, and welcome to Ropella TV. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Dr. Jim Harris. Jim is an author with 8 books, including a Fortune magazine Best Business book, as well as an American Management Association bestseller. Jim is also the founder of To a Higher Level, a global leadership transformation firm. Jim has coached and worked with C-level executives for over 35 years for some of the world's largest and Fortune 500 companies. Companies like Ford Motor Company, Johnson & Johnson, Best Buy, State Farm, Walmart, and many more. Today we're here to learn about Jim's experiences involving interviewing, hiring, and team building. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you coming and spending some time with us today.
Great to be here today, Pat. Thank you.
Jim, starting out as a shoeshine boy at 12 years old and moving to the highest level of the boardroom at Fortune 500 companies, you've obviously been on many interviews. Can you tell me about the best experiences you ever had when you were interviewing for a job?
You know, Pat, one of the best experiences I ever had as a candidate being interviewed was with that Fortune 500 firm. And in one word, here's what they did better than any other firm I ever interviewed with. They were totally professional. The process was laid out very well. Before I got to the interview, I knew exactly what was going on in the first interview. By the time I went to the second and third interview, they had total clarity, total commitment to the process and to the system. And so by the end of the process itself, I knew exactly where I stood, I even knew where the other candidates stood. And I was fortunate enough to have gotten the offer and I accepted it. So in one word, the very best experience I ever had, this firm was very, very professional.
Very interesting. Now can you tell me about your worst experience where you were involved in interviewing for a job?
You know, Pat, one of the worst experiences I ever had as a candidate was with a large firm. And when they brought me in, I knew very quickly, I could tell within the first hour, that I was the token interview, that they had already chosen somebody else for that position, and they were simply going through the motions. And how could I tell? Well, I could tell there was no enthusiasm. They really were just asking questions with no enthusiasm. They weren't even taking notes. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't long before I figured out, when they told me that there was an internal candidate that was also part of the process, they perked up a little bit about the internal candidate, about his history, and about how long he'd been with the firm. So it didn't take me long to piece it together that they were going to already choose, they had already chosen the other internal candidate. So that really made me feel small, minute, just a token, just a part of a process that I was never going to have a chance to get the job itself. And frankly, it just made me feel not very worthy. Mm-hmm.
Jim, earlier in your career, you held a position as a top national training executive at Eckerd Drugs. So it's safe to say you've had many opportunities to interview others, right?
Yes, I sure have.
Please tell me about the best experiences that you've had interviewing others.
You know, previous to that Fortune 500 position, Pat, I was also the national recruiting manager for a $500 million home builder, mortgage banking, and manufactured housing firm. So I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of C-suite under mid-manager positions over those 3 years. And the best experiences I had as an interviewer were when those candidates came in, they knew about the job, they knew about the company, they asked intelligent questions, and they showed a sincere interest in the job. Now I know that's fundamental interviewing 101, but when the candidate shows a sincere interest in doing their homework and understanding where the company is attempting to go and had intelligent, in-depth questions, those are wonderful interviewing opportunities.
Okay, Jim. Tell me now about the worst experiences you ever had that involved interviewing others for a hire.
Oh, Pat, I had so many bad interview candidates come in, but I'm reminded of one in particular. A young man came in, and we started the interview. And this is what he did throughout the entire interview. He put his hands in front of his face, and he kind of hid behind it, and he would answer my questions by bringing his head out like this. Of course, that was totally inappropriate. But the kicker was this: I could tell he really wasn't interested. He had a personality about him that would not fit an organization. So I shortened the interview, and one of my closing questions typically was, well, do you have any questions for me? And here's what the young man did. He came out from behind his finger tapping and said, do you think you can afford me? I can't describe to you how obnoxious, how unprepared, how unprofessional that young man was. So I decided very quickly to free up his future, cut the interview short, and he went on his way. And who knows what he's doing now, but he wasn't going to be part of my company.
Jim, as you've been involved in leading and transforming many teams of your own, as well working for your Fortune 500 clients, over the past 30 years, you've had to review many individuals for various team leadership roles. So can you tell me about the best experiences you've had leading teams?
One of the best experiences I've ever had leading a team was for a multi-million-dollar branch of a national transportation firm. We leased big trucks over the road. I didn't know a drop box from a fifth wheel when the man hired me to come in and help this branch. But there were two things this branch needed. Number one, they needed their union mechanics to be part of the team. They had unionized under my previous boss. And number two, we needed to get some new customers. The market was going down in the 80s and we needed to bring in some new business. I knew the leader of that union mechanic shop was, quite frankly, a troublemaker. So the very first day, Pat, the very first day, I took him off to the side, we made a special trip, and I told this gentleman to his face, who could then tell his union mechanics, I said, Rob, I always trust every professional until they mess with me the first time. I will trust you and your mechanics. Regardless of what you tell me, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to believe in you. What you need to do is keep the trucks moving. What I'm going to do is go find us some new customers so we all have a job. What do you think? He thought for a second, he said, fair enough. And building from day one that level of trust, within 90 days, my union branch was outperforming my boss's non-union mechanics branch across town. So I learned very quickly in that particular job the power of trust in building a team. You've got to have trust or you're really not going to be able to turn around anything.
That was very interesting, Jim. So tell me about your worst experience where you were responsible for leading a team.
You know, Pat, the worst experience I've had leading a team was when I was hired to help transform an organization, to really invent the future instead of redesigning the past. And I was brought in under a certain set of expectations. Well, quickly those expectations changed. And instead of being a transformational leader, I was asked to be a line item budget manager. That's not my strength. It never will be. That's just not my strength. So I was a square peg in a round hole pretty quickly. And it became drudgery, it became misery to come into the office sometimes. And I was leading a national team. So what I learned from that is when you hire, when you go into an organization, when you're offering candidates a position, make sure you have very extreme clarity on the role they're going to play. Make sure you're hiring to that role, to their skills and to the ability level, and don't change in midstream, because the only thing that's going to happen is that the company's going to go down and the morale is going to go down significantly.
So Jim, what kind of qualities an individual really stand out that would make you want to pick them for a promotion or a specialized project or task?
You know, Pat, it used to be that I would focus on competency, the skill level. Do they have an extreme skill level? But over my years, one of the things that I've learned, a bit of wisdom, is that skills can only take you so far. Competency can only take you so far. The number one criteria I look for now in promotions and next level or new projects is character. What is the character of the person? Are they well-grounded? Do they have the wisdom to know the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? Do they stay away from the wrong thing? Do they have the self-discipline to keep doing the right thing? Do they walk their talk? I promise you, I've had far greater success with people reporting to me that have solid character and minimal skills because I know I can trust them. If they don't have the answer, they'll find it, rather than going with someone who's highly competent, but you can't trust them. So I have learned over the years to put more emphasis on character than competence.
So Jim, as you went up through the ranks, what qualities were there about you that were part of what got you promoted that you'd like to recommend to others as they work towards developing their career?
Well, Pat, as I look back and reflect on that question, there's two or three things that I think helped me. Number one, I always had a heart for the front line. Even in the Fortune 250 company, when I was part of the headquarters, I had a sense, a pulse of what was going on in the field, at the store level, and the regional level. In fact, many of the executives there said I was the only one in my entire department that really understood what was going on outside of headquarters. And so that gave me credibility as well as the knowledge to be able to make wise decisions that impacted the front line. So that was really one of the things that stood out for me. Number two, being in power positions with legitimate position power, I was always eyes on, hands off. That didn't mean I wasn't I wasn't willing to get into the stores and help stock or restock. I would be willing to do that, but my job was to help guide them in doing their jobs and not doing their jobs for them. And then third thing, as I think back on it, the first two combine to really be a servant leader. I've always felt, Pat, and I've gotten great response from the teams I've led with this phrase. It's kind of been my unofficial mantra over the years. If you take good care of your people, they'll take care of you. If you don't take care of your people, they'll take care of you. So I'm looking at always, what can I do to minimize the barriers? What can I do to grow the skills they need? Eyes on, hands off, taking care of the front line, and trying to serve them the very best I could. Those three things have really been helpful to me in my career in transforming teams.
So Jim, if you had to do your career over again, what is it that you would do differently that you think you'd like to share with us as a word of wisdom?
For me, throughout my academic career, bachelor's, master's, doctorate, I focused in the liberal arts, communication, psychology, learning rhetoric and public address, small group dynamics. I focused in the liberal arts. Pat, the single biggest mistake I made was not after I started my business career, it was in my academic training. I wish I had taken some business, accounting, and finance courses. I was always a step behind once I got it. It took a long time to catch up. So for anyone out there that might be listening to this, that have kids or themselves have liberal arts training, I would highly recommend get a minor in business, take some business classes. That can help you immensely in your career to get even a fast track start wherever you might want to go.
Very good. Well, Jim, thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed learning from you. Thank you.
Pat, it's great to be here.